see it?
All right, I have shared it.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll just press record button and there we go. We're ready.
We're ready, rock and roll. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Alexis and our meeting tonight, meeting place, where we're going to talk about 2025, usher in the new year, share maybe a bit about 2024, and really all the new energy that's coming into our lives personally, really, as well as on the planet. And so we had a little chat just as we were getting set up tonight. And thank you, Alexis, so much for being here. I love working with you. And for those of you who don't know, Alexis and I have done workshops in the past, and it's so fun because we just show up. We don't have any plan, any script, and we flow together beautifully, which is exactly the essence of new energy in 2025 and what we both know and we both live. But what's really coming through so strongly for all of us. Now, this is not a new message. Honestly, this is kind of the same thing that we've been embodying more and more of, but it's really about relaxing, enjoying your life, your personal life, and stepping more and more into our everyday lives. And I say relaxing because most of the folks, probably our friends for sure, we have friends in common, similar audiences with the work we do, have been really, really serious on this whole spiritual awakening journey into embodying and knowing and discovering more of yourself. So it's like that can be a real tunnel vision, a real focus. And what's really coming up for us more powerfully than ever this year is to kind of let go of the work, to turn your attention from the old, from the news, from the whatever's going on over here, over there, all the crumbling, and turn that focus into you and what you want to do and how you want to live and what is calling to you personally. I'm looking at a plant here as I speak this, getting your hands in the soil of your life. And whether that is anything at all, but really doing it in a way where you let go of the work and be carefree and know that all is well and that you're truly taken care of. And the image that is sort of presenting tonight with this message is like, when you take a breath and relax. So I'll invite everyone to do that with us here tonight. And you just know that all is well and you don't have to work so hard and struggle or focus on fixing anything. Um, then your energy field opens up and the new energy comes in and your life realigns itself, and things that maybe you were working on, when you pull your attention away from them, start to realign and metamorphosize and just transform. And that's really what the new energy is all about. There's nothing to fix, there's nothing broken. Having no set agenda and just letting this new kind of show up for you. It just jumps into your life just the way Cleo did. So that's really what I'm getting strongly as we go into this year, about even letting fun and celebration fuel this expansion into new energy. And gosh, if you've been working hard on this journey, if you've been struggling or suffering, to just toss it away, let it go, feel good about yourself, feel good about life, and focus on what really serves you and feels good for you. So, with that, I will hand it over to you, Alexis.
And hello, everyone. And I too wish everyone a happy new year 2025. And all of us are still here, even though in the past, in the last couple of decades, sometimes it was doubtful because there were all of those questions and things that we had to sort of go deep into and find answers to. Do we want to be here? How do we want to be here? And I love how your cat is with us. I've just seen the tail. Last year, which almost feels like now that we've been in it for a couple of days, it feels like it's been ages ago, but it's been such a huge monumental year in really almost like finalizing things that, we lived, and things that we before was a theory, and now it's like an active practicing life. And it's funny when you said, yes, we do come together and we don't prepare, anything and flow. But this new way of being is very different in this way because it doesn't actually have, a preparation in the old ways, meaning that, like if presenters, people put together text and they learn, and sometimes they even read off the screen, like the news presenters and things like that. But for us, actually now it's a very different kind of preparation. It's a much deeper preparation. So in this way, it's not accurate really to say that we don't prepare, because we deeply prepare because we live it. So like for example, for me, like when I set a name to a course or something like that, it's not like that my mind sets it, for any webinar or workshop, but it just pops up from the depth of my being, and I don't even know how it's going to fit in with with something that is happening a month later or something like that, because things change. But it just has to do with trust. There is a word, a title that pops up. I call it, and then I know that I'm actually going to live that title for that month, and especially like a week before. So basically, and then just being present, being in my own space, like this is the preparation. The preparation is not so much into making notes and things, even though, sometimes I do, as I go throughout my month or whatever living, I put in little notes that pop up for me, just little sentence or few words to trigger things. But then, when I sit down and actually the flow comes, it's not because I haven't prepared, I've deeply prepared, because just by being me, being in the now moment, being in the space, being connected, whatever comes up, clearing, letting it go, integrating. And that is kind of like such a part of our lives now. We all of these skills and tools that we've learned over the last 20 years, it's a very like being in this life. It's not, even though the words say, okay, I fall into myself deeply, I relax into myself, in my own being, in my truth, in my rawness of who I am. But that is an incredibly active way of being. There's nothing passive about it. This allowing, this continual, giving yourself to yourself. It's an act of love, but it's kind of like a relationship, like between lovers. Actually, it's a relationship, I find, me and me, this relationship between human and soul, whatever words that one use. It is a reflection of all of the relationships that I've known. So for example, as a human, whether it's a mother and child, father and child, parent, child, then adult to parent, like you mentioned, teenager, inner child, all of these things are very much present and active and alive and dynamic. And basically being in this kind of real, incredibly alive, dynamic way, it actually, it took all of those years of preparation, because you slowly get used to how to do this. You slowly learn new skills and utilize your abilities and your talents and your inner mastery. So inner mastery really is being present and being okay and being vulnerable and in love, and in this being in love with yourself, with your own parts, it's a continual act of doingness in some way.
Yeah.
It's like you continually love, you continually take care of yourself in so many ways. So, you have to learn not to be dismissive of yourself. All of those things of very unhealthy ways of relating to other people, but most importantly to oneself. This last couple of decades, or this lifetime, or many other lifetimes, has been about letting go, relearning. And especially for those of us that perhaps have had very challenging, difficult, traumatic past in this life, experiences, we've known how to relate to ourselves in a very, very unhealthy, maybe harsh, punitive, critical, all of these ways. So this life, it's been all about learning how to become intimate, how to become soft, how to become gentle, how to become accepting of all of yourself, of who you are. And the more I become familiar with myself, the more that it comes to that truth comes out. I am that I am. And it's like we as beings are much more weird and bizarre in a way than what, let's say, science would say, or people that are in the mind would say. Because once you start touching these eternal parts of yourself, parts that are timeless, parts that are being part of creating, the physical universe, even though for a mind it's hard to believe that. Once you start touching those parts, you realize that, where there's no definitions needed in that space. It's I am that I am is enough. I am that I am. I don't have to describe myself in certain levels. But on the surface of being a human, it would be neglectful to not accept all of the parts that human being needs, which is a much more practical, much more physical, and it has definitions. So on a surface level, the human very much has definitions. I can say I feel satisfied, I feel happy, I feel joyful in this moment, but so this whole getting used to being a multidimensional being, which means that I am all of that. I am this very normal, everyday, practical human being that has failures, that experiences all sorts of things that every other human being experiences. And at the same time, I have this presence of my soul, which is timeless, eternal, perfect in its imperfection. You can't use certain words in a relationship to it. And so this is what it means, that I'm no longer this little boxed defined thing, but at the same time I also am that also. So we kind of didn't know what this would be like, this life, trying to be all of this, all that we are, continually allowing these greater parts of ourselves into our reality. And this last year, 2024, was really, for me, it wasn't an easy year at all, and it wasn't very public year for me. I've been very much in a cave space, my own space, like where I've been allowing all of this to integrate all of the final parts, or final misalignment, or how can I say, the ideas of the world and who is who in it. It's collapsed. That old story for me, it's collapsed because it was a very inaccurate picture of the world as it more realistically is, of who I am, who people were. I had kind of very, in some ways, very much upside down ideas of things. So for me, that was my personal journey. Like last year or the year before, at the end of not 2024, 23, that kind of story collapsed, and then I had to kind of allow all of these new components, all of these new bricks to start building me from the scratch up again, choosing what I want and what I don't want, who I want to be, what ideas, what beliefs I want. And these kind of things have come this mastery ability to shape shift and to move from one to the other has been so important, because so easily in that vulnerable state, I could have again used the building blocks of my life to be that, I'm unworthy, I'm ugly, I'm whatever, I'm imperfect, I'm stupid, I'm all of these kind unloved, or betray, all of those betrayal and all of those kind of things of the old life, and things that, let's say, humanity is kind of using these kind of feelings and emotions, and that's why you have so much depression and so much of all of these kind of things, and unworthiness. So all of these ingredients were there for me to choose, and yet, somewhere along the way, I've really gained the ability to be a master in my own space, meaning that, I can see things much more objectively, and I can just say, you know what, this is not part of mine anymore. This is not. It doesn't mean I don't feel it or touch it. It's just that I'm not choosing them not to be part of my foundation, part of my world, part of who I construct myself as my image. And in these last few weeks, that has been especially again coming up, and it's like, okay, all of these old feelings that I can feel in collective unconsciousness, and all these emotions, and fear, and unworthiness, and all of these kind of things, and having people be in authority over the inner belief systems, like the scientists, the doctors, the
Yes.
whatever else that we've given the authority to. This is like, okay, do you want this or do you want this? And it's again been no, I put that aside. But putting that aside, it really does mean that I step into how I feel, that I feel not that how can I say, the fake feeling of well-being, the fake feeling of feeling healthily selfish, how, because this is narcissism. There's an illness that is narcissism, but it mimics the spiritual well-being very well, and so there is this subtle differences when I actually feel completely king and a queen of my own world, of my own life, but not in an overbearing way, not in an arrogant way, not in an unhealthy narcissistic way, but in a simply accepting a simple divine truth of who I am. I myself and everyone else in their world, I am the center of my own being. I am a sovereign in my own inner sovereign space. But along the way, because we've actually done the work, we've done the spiritual work that was necessary. Each one of us that is in this space, we've been able to let go of those fake feelings of arrogance, fake feelings of selfishness, fake feelings of that. Because the thing is that if you are feeling those unhealthy fake things, I don't know what, we'll have to find better words to
Called
describe this.
emotion. It's
Yeah,
called emotion because that is dualistic energy.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Was
not your
part of,
presence. Emotion goes
exactly.
up and down, up and down.
Yeah. And in those ways, we along the way, because we've been able to see our flaws, we've been able to see our deep darkness, the shadow, things that we didn't want to acknowledge. We've lost along the way all of those arrogance and all of that. And when you keep losing that, I'm not losing, letting go, healing, whatever, integrating, letting go, you then are able to touch your true essence more and more. Because if you are in those kind of unhealthy things, the path to your own essence is locked inside, like the doorways are locked. The way you open the keys to open these is to
Yeah.
integrate, to let go, to become humble inside of yourself, because you realize, at one hand, you realize just how magnificent, magical life really is, and who each one of us are. And also then you realize also what is real of that essence and what isn't. And so it's been a huge year. And also for, I noticed for many of us who are doing this work, we've really had to let go of even the last cleansings. And yeah, I was asked many times, do you still want to do this work? Do I want to do this work as, let's say, the webinars, working with people, helping them to come in touch with their own soul, and to also define and find out exactly what my work was. So that's kind of what was about, what it was all about for me last year. Is like I had to really go deep and ask, okay, this my work? Is this my passion? And find
What
the
was the
passion. And
answer?
if it isn't, then let it go. Yeah.
So where did that lead you? Did you have a like epiphany, or where did you end up with that? That's fascinating.
With many epiphanies, but also, I had to really look at, okay, do I still want to do this work? What does it entail? Because I had to again find a deeper passion for this work. Is it really my work? Is it my passion? Is it something that I feel? Because we being real and being raw and being true and authentic, like we talked to you a little bit earlier, you still have to use like a practical, things that work with this. But we are asked, well, I've been asked to really be authentic with this in a next level of always been, this has been my work, always, okay, I have to keep clearing. Is this something I want to do? And feel it and find it. Yes, this is, feel that passion. So a lot of it has been about that, to continue to find that passion and to be then 100% certain, okay, yes, I feel it, it is my passion, and then start to practically implement that in a new way. Because the thing is, there is, this world now is such a, how can I say, in many way, very dangerous place, I find, in a way that there are as we bring consciousness in, more and more consciousness, so too does the unconscious lift up its game. And so, to be able to see through the lies and deceit, self-deceit, and all of these untrue energy, to kind of keep working with the essence, I find that I've had to lift up my game enormously in the last year, to just keep always feeling what is of my heart, what is not of my heart, what is the true essence of my feeling. Because these themes of truth are so fine and so delicate, and yet timeless and eternal and infinitely powerful. And yet, when you are in this world that where the untruth is also now so full on intense and growing, we I think we've had to all up our game a lot, because there's so much at stake, and it is so easy for people, let's say, who are maybe just awakening, to get lost for years. No one gets lost forever, but because that, so many times, that path that you're walking on, as an awakening path, it feels a lot of times like a razor's edge, because you can always fall into, let's say, spiritual bypassing, and you think, oh wow, I'm so healthy, and I'm well and wounded and healed and all of that, and yet all you've done is spiritual bypass things, and so you can actually then be swimming in that spiritual bypassing for years. And yet, in your mind, you can think, wow, I'm actually doing something, when you're actually stuck, so this is what I mean, where in some ways, our road is quite treacherous. In this
Yes.
way, and this path that we're walking on is a razor's edge at times. I felt it many times in the last couple of decades, especially how, I could easily just topple. And yet at the same time, part of this multidimensional truth is also that all throughout I was incredibly protected. It's like, when I was the most vulnerable, I was in a bubble of protection by my soul. So it's incredible how we can experience both are true. What be opposite almost, like I'm like, how can you be walking on razor's edge when at the same time you are completely in your arms of your soul and protected, and yet both are true.
Yeah.
Both are true. That's the thing of being multidimensional being, that all of these truths are true at the same time. So and then dealing and finding sense as a human being living an everyday life where you wake up, you brush your teeth, you have to make breakfast, and and you go out and you do shopping, and you're maybe stuck in traffic or whatever. This is kind of like what we're really dealing with now. And how do you work with others, start going out, like we chatted, for me was starting going out again in many different ways, and you're dancing, of course, but just thought I'll say that. But it's just about, how do we navigate this world with open heart, with heart that is vulnerable, with being this kind of person that where the connection between the mind and the heart is open, where majority of the world is still cut off from this connection. And so it has its own special challenges, but at the same time, when we're talking, like, let's say when I say challenge, or some certain things were challenging, I also want to put it in a context, because this has become so apparent to me last year, is that, when I talk about challenge, it's a very, very different thing than when, let's say, someone who hasn't woken yet is talking about challenges. Because when they say challenge, perhaps it means they're lost, they're feeling depressed, they're feeling all sorts of those kind of experiences. But when I say challenge, underneath it all, my base is now joy and self-love. So challenge within context is a very, very different thing than challenge for someone, let's say, who's still unconscious, unawakened, so asleep, so to speak. And so, yeah, so all of these things, I don't even know how to unpack the monumental year yet that was last year. There's just been so many aspects to it that I think, like, as we keep living, it will keep coming out and coming out. But one thing is true, like everything in the clarity of things, or like, the messages, the channeling, there's just so natural now, and so clear. And this being in touch with this well of being, it's just, I just sit down and it's just like, it just comes out. And sometimes, like, I know in the things that we've had, with webinars and all of the things that I've had last year, like the quality has gone next levels in a way, the experience and the clarity, and also sometimes, like, my mind just completely goes. And if afterwards someone, it's like I would come back and I wake up and it's like, whoa, we've been on a journey wherever we've been. And if someone asked me, oh, what did you do half an hour ago? I couldn't even tell you, because we
Yeah.
go into things so deeply. And so these veils that we had before are gone, and yet we're still now, dealing with the aftermath almost of how do we live with this? How do we integrate this? How do we play in this kind of new arenas? And so, yeah, for me, yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful space, but with full of, things to work out, and challenges, and steps to actually do to implement all of these new insights and new energies and new ways of being. And so for me, this 2025 is about that, is about practically now implementing these deep changes that have actually happened in 2024.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. You unpacked. I mean,
We got
it's
right in.
it's such a big picture and you encompass so much with everything you said. I agree with all of that. It's like it's funny because as you were talking, something occurred to me that, like, I guess I hadn't looked at it this way, but probably with my work, I had the same thing last year. because for me, for sure, I would say in many ways, 2024 was the easiest year I've probably ever had in this lifetime. But it all depends on the person and what your past was. And friends that know me know, 15 years ago, I was on every psychiatric med. I mean, I was, so like it's just been easier year over year. You got to consider the starting point, right? Where somebody started. Um, but it's like I went from the decade or decades, over a decade of hardly working and not doing much and going deep and working and clearing and blah, 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 to really this past year to year and a half. I mean, about a year and a half ago, I started working in the community, a more consistent job, part-time to full-time. And then it's so funny because, as you mentioned, all the different aspects that are integrating teenagers and 20 somethings and you kind of get through the deeper wounds and there's still all these ones that didn't get their time to explore life, right? The middle school ages, the adolescents, the teenagers. And so when you're rebuilding, like you said, you might go off in this direction and then that direction. So really though, it was funny because I went back to work full time plus with my website, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And first of all, it was like, wow, I'm alive. I can do this. Like I can actually be human again, minus all the meds, just me, my breath, my presence. And then but going back into these things, it's like after however many months, kind of like what you were sharing, maybe, it was like, well, what do I really want? And yeah, I want to do more work on my website. So I ended up cutting back my hours over here and going back to doing events and, working a lot with people one-on-one. So it is a constant, it's a constant metamorphosis. And it really is, like you said, where we don't do any work, there's no script. It is 24/7 presence, awareness. You're aware of your thoughts, how you're feeling, what you're doing. If you are sliding into an old habit, you're aware of it, you watch it. And for me, the reason, like you said, the challenges, there's no problem that could ever really be a problem anymore because the problems were so hard at one point. Now it's like a challenge, whatever. You do what you got to do. Even if it's something like, oh, wow, you just ask and there's the information, or, if you have to sit with yourself for an hour and figure something out, you just do it and you just knock it out of the park. And then you go and you know that you trust yourself enough now after all that life experience. But yeah, so the challenges are nothing at all like they used to be. But what you were talking about with the narcissistic energy. This is where, for me, it is about being in presence and being my presence 24/7. I'm not Cathy. I'm not her aspects. I'm not my galactic aspects. I'm not my past lives. I'm not any of the emotions that pass through my awareness. It's really from a standpoint of presence, and when you know you're not any of this other stuff, it's like it's allowed to alchemize in your presence. It dissolves away. And what I have found, though, that is significant is that, okay, yeah, sometimes people go off and they're, seeking their happiness from external things, saying, yes, I'm enlightened or whatever it is, I've made it. But it's kind of funny because when you live in presence and you are I'm choosing joy, right? I'm creator. Um, it can sort of mimic I called it like what is it called, a sociopath, someone who has no emotion but in a joyful way, because truly as you get lighter and lighter and clearer and more aware of what's you and what's not, And all that noise in the mass collective, all the energies, the emotional energies, which is all it is, a big cloud of emotional energy constructs, when that sort of fades away, it's like you just naturally feel joyful and brighter and lighter. But it could look almost like I've had people like, are you for real? Or maybe they need to get to know me for 6 months or a year and a half before they realize, no, this is just like this is my natural state. Like probably 99, whatever, 95+% of the time, this is my mood. It's not a mood. It's not an up and down mood. It's not dependent on what the weather is today, how many hours I have to work, how much money's in the bank, whether my body's got some aches and pains, because those move through, whether there's some sadness leaving or a fear arises, like Alexis and I were talking about before the event. And oh, that's my other Alexis. We were talking before the event, about having those feelings, and I said I worked all morning and then tonight, like, I thought, well, maybe I'll take a nap after work because I'm up at 5:30 a.m. and it's like 7:30 p.m. here. But I was too excited and I had that feeling this morning of like, what are we gonna say? The mind comes in like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea. Pretty much before every event because it's not scripted, it's not planned, and my mind will come in like, I have no idea what I'm doing. How is this gonna go? And I'm like, it always goes beautifully. Like we'll know, we'll just let it flow. So you're still constantly, at least for me, adjusting to these things. But the key really is, like with that, for example, it's that trust, like you were talking about. And when I was sitting down looking at my website, going, okay, we're really going to go all in now. And I kind of rewrote it back in September and I was like, going to put the events out. Like, I'm so excited now. I mean, when you go and you work a full-time job, that's not your own business and your own passion, it's like, all right, I feel really extra motivated now to put more energy into my own creations. But when I sat down and was like, all right, when asked, what is it I do or what am I really deeply passionate about? And it's how I live that I'm passionate about. And that's what I share with others. And that is to be the love that I am and to judge nothing. So to be unconditional love means having no conditions, no judgments. For me, that means no beliefs. I don't even have to choose any belief. And from that space of no judgment, you don't create any more emotions. So you don't have the highs and lows. Yeah, they still pass through sometimes, but they can be there. There's like, oh, there's this thing leaving, there's this thing integrating. And that's where I did find like a very it's been potent for me to be able to shift into my presence and into my role as creator beyond any agendas. This is not about being more joyful than anyone else, better than anyone else. This is all about you, like how you feel for you, no comparison. And like it reminds me of one day, this is probably 3 years ago, I was just walking down the road, right outside my window here, and I was feeling all that heavy old gunk, it's like shame, yeah, you're ugly, you suck, you're a useless human being, those energies we feel, and you just kind of been feeling it your whole life. It's like, will this ever leave? I've been breathing and freaking clearing for, as forever. And it's like, it's there again. And I had this moment where I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna let it be there. And I turned the dial and I just said, I deserve to feel good about myself and expanded through it and just, I'm freaking awesome. I'm creator. Like I was created. Everyone here that's listening, you're awesome. I mean, everyone. I don't care if you're a murderer, everyone is, we're the same core essence. And so it's like that ability to, it's there. I know it's there. I've worked on it. I've worked on it enough. I've suffered enough. You know, there's no more amount of suffering that's gonna help this, and to shift that focus into what frequency we want to create in presence and feel it and amplify it. And for me, that's been a powerful tool. The one I usually choose is love. When I'm feeling a little nervous or scared, because I get those, sometimes driving to work, it's like, oh, what's today going to be like? And am I feeling me or the mass collective? Who cares? I just turn the dial to love. And it's like, oh, yeah. Or you could say turn the dial to feeling your presence, the embrace of your essence. And then it's like, oh, I'm always embraced. So, yeah, the whole year for 2024 was for me incredible in terms of working again, living human life. I mean, I did stuff I haven't done for 10, 15, 20 years, like, you know, playing with my plants, decorating, cooking, doing stuff with friends, with family, like the most simple, seemingly ordinary things that are huge. And when I can't tell you how many times, like over the last whatever, I've said, oh, shouldn't I be working harder on my website? Because I work very little. Like when my life is so easy, it's like I feel sometimes like, am I allowed to live this easy of a life? I have ample time to relax, play, go in nature, lay on my couch, watch Netflix, do anything I want to do. Um, and I love that. And so I was always a hard worker. Like, I want to be on the ball. I want to do the best job I can. And when I would say, okay, isn't there more I should be doing? Isn't there more I should be doing? So just recently, I had like this epiphany where all of a sudden, myself, whatever facet of me, a higher consciousness facet of myself, came and said, oh, Cathy, let's look at the past few years. And I was like, okay. And the question was, well, like, what would your life be like right now if your website and your business and what you're doing was this busy, like 3 years ago? Say I started my website like 4.5 years ago. So I've not, so like 3 years ago, I was like, oh God, that would have been terrible. My whole life would be different. Like, I would have had a tunnel vision. So for anybody listening who's like, I want this to happen, why isn't this happening faster? Or shouldn't I be working harder? Maybe blah, blah. It's like, oh God, I would have never branched off and done this and branched off and done that and branched off and done this. And like all these other little things that I've done in my day-to-day life that sometimes to the human can seem like, psst, like not a big deal. Like being carefree, playing, having fun, uh, you know, just the simple things. So it's kind of funny how looking back, I was like, wow, like you said, being in a protective bubble, it's like all of us are always in a protective bubble. If you will judge nothing, allow everything, just, keep being aware, being in presence, making those adjustments into what really calls to you, what lights up your heart, what brings you joy, how you want to live, asking yourself the deep questions. Yeah, yeah. But it's like, it's actually all being orchestrated so perfectly. And when we get those glimpses, it's like, oh, that's so great. Like, thank you so much. So, yeah, I'm just thrilled to see what else unfolds. I mean, it's just we're just starting every day. I'm like, I feel like I've won the lottery every day that I get to feel like this and live in like a state of really feeling carefree or good about life and myself. And then it's like, but I feel like I'm just getting started because the next day when you experience more or the next week or whatever, you're like, oh wow, like I was only scratching the surface, and that's just gonna keep happening.
And it keeps happening, and that's like when I say you keep falling in love with yourself. This is it. These are experiences, and you so beautifully described so many of the things, that yeah, in words, that are so accessible and understandable, because sometimes it is hard to portray what we feel, and use the right words. And you have this wonderful ability to just say things in a way that, that I think, wow, even if someone who has never experienced that would be able to sort of catch these glimpses of what that actually practically means. And for me, the same, it's like this, like I feel so good that I've never felt this good before. And my life has never actually been so good, even though I do much less than what I used to, to try and feel good. And yet at the same time, it's like somehow there's so much that is part of it again, or in a new way, or, like I've started all these things that I've been postponing before, or didn't have time or didn't have energy. And some of the things also, like when you're going through those emotional pains, like when you are full on in those intense emotions, they seem impossible. And that's why so much of now these practical things, just maintaining my home, playing in the garden, pottering around, like this relaxed way of doing things. And yet by the end of the day, everything is done, and I've decided to sort of start putting my instruments here. So you can see in the background my drum,
Oh,
because my music, yes, my music has become such a huge part of my life, and I'm still working out how to incorporate this into my, into all of the things that I do. So I'm playing drum regularly, I'm learning piano, and I've got a bass guitar. So, and dancing and stuff. So these are the things that I, in the old days, didn't have time. For some reason, it was just about survival and job. And I don't know what happens to your day, because like you, me too, I do things and I do them well, and I do complete things like my work and all of that stuff, and yet I still have all this time for other things, like not other things, but to just dance, to potter in the garden, to do all these different physical things and improve things. And it's incredible how many different insights I can have during the day, and how practical being in your divinity actually is, because you think, well, this part of me that has been outside of physical life is not familiar. And yet all of a sudden I get all these insights how I can arrange my furniture to be more practical and better, or to have a different energy flow. And I'm thinking, why on earth have I not done this years ago? Because it's so much better in this way. But I just haven't been able to see it before,
yeah.
and so me too, for me, like actually today, after show, I'm going to town, because I've been changing my furniture and all ordered it online for the first time. So the three pieces I have to go and pick up from the delivery warehouse, because
Yay.
and so it's all of these kind of things, slowly but surely, changing, upgrading. But it kind of,
Upgrading.
yeah, and but I'm finding that, well, yeah, because certain things, pieces of furniture, the arrangements are just not anymore fitting the energy that I am now. But also, in those times when I was so full on focused on integrating and on clearing, and working with the shadow self and stuff, like you mentioned so well, before, for me too, it seemed like certain just normal practical things that other people can do easily just seemed impossible in that space.
Totally, totally.
And yeah, and all of a sudden, now I'm thinking, why did it feel so impossible? Just simple things like changing the furniture and
It's
doing
the
these things.
perfect
It
bubble that you needed to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
It
like
was
so
all very
cool.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And but now, like when the time came, but I'm also finding that this implementation of these things, it's actually following very physical laws, so to speak, because we are physical, and as a human being, and so it does require those practical steps, the steps you do step by step by step, because somehow in the past I had this idea that things have to change, whether this was just a, fantasy that people often have, that, oh, from tomorrow on, everything will be different, and people have this about diet, about exercising, about whatever people want to do. It's like, oh, today I'm still going to do this, but tomorrow everything will be different. But it's actually not like that, because the soul part of yourself wants to experience, and this can be frustrating for human at times. In the past, it was not anymore now, but it wants to experience all the step by step process of all this change, of the transformation.
Yeah, and did
So
you
it's not
think
in
at one
any rush.
did
Sorry,
you
sorry.
think at one point that it would like I remember thinking, oh, now I'm just gonna
Mm.
like abracadabra and change.
Yes. Yes, but a lot of people think that, is that spiritual naivety, and
Yes.
and especially when you start contact, start feeling this eternal presence of yourself, which is magical and can do these things. But we don't realize and take account that yes, we are physical, and as long as I'm alive as a human being in this life, then both are true. That both are true, and so all of these fantasy ideas have sort of slowly been leaving. And as you mentioned something before, I forget now, but I was gonna say, how, oh yeah, about, we were talking about like things like narcissism and psychopaths and all of that, how certain things within the spiritual, they actually mimic, there's a real thing, which means that you have become a master of your emotions. You become like this sovereign in your sovereign space, meaning that none of those intense emotions actually rule you anymore. And so you can put them aside and you can let them go, because you become this king and queen in your own sovereign space. And that actually is masked by people who are
Right.
still disconnected but unwell. It's kind of like that thing where you people take drugs and ayahuasca and all of these kind of things to sort of tap into the real spiritual experiences, and they have those experiences, but what they don't have is maturity of a journey. And
Yep.
so it's kind of like, let's say, if you have a child and all of a sudden you bestow upon them to try and act as an adult, when in reality, let's say the baby has to go through, okay, I learn how to walk, I take the first steps, then I learn how to walk, then I learn how to read and write and have all of those experiences, and all of a sudden, wow, I'm 20, 30, 40, I'm a mature adult, hopefully,
Mhm.
because of all of this journey. And so it's the same with the spiritual journey. You can, as an a spiritual child, so to speak, even if it's an adult person in an adult body, but if you haven't had this journey where you've had time to let go of the falsehoods, to integrate your shadow self, to learn how to deal with this, to learn how to be the boss of your emotions, then you can't deal with or handle that. And that's why, a lot of people that take drugs and touch these spaces, they actually go mad, very unhealthy, because it's like trying to, it's like if someone could time transport what it means to be an adult into a baby. They can't handle it. And so this is the same. And for me, I've always been curious, because me too, I've been interested in, and some people have said, okay, but this looks like this and that looks like that. You sound, to someone who hasn't experienced this depth and cleansing and cleaning and in touch with the shadow, if you start explaining that, it can sound very much like those conditions, mental health
Yeah.
conditions, which are very
Everything
real. Yeah.
everything mimics. Isn't it weird how
Yes. Yeah.
everything on the really, we'll call it the 3D life, mimics an element of
Hmm.
we'll call it the 5D life in a way. It's like everything that we've created here somehow mimics like what
Hmm.
we know we are. And exactly what you're saying is like that journey of integration is a maturing. And like for somebody, I'll just use myself, for example, who was in my 30s before I really woke up. I mean, I was like always into the Tao, but not religious, not spiritual. Like I would sometimes read these esoteric things, but it's like, so you live a full human life. And I was very type A, logical, corporate gal, like, oh yeah, you can send energy, whatever, woo woo. Like, that's a bunch of crap. And then to go poof and like for me, since I was so close to death, honestly, when with my awakening and having the whole Kundalini awakening where was, I mean, I left the body and came back, and like then knowing who you are to integrate those two seems like such different worlds. And I remember thinking, I don't want to stay here, like, and this is way too much work. And do I want to go back to that serious life? No freaking way. And then the arrogance with I know who I am and I don't have to do anything, and immaturity. And, I think back to that time having all this awareness, but being so ungrounded with it, which was perfect. That's not a rip on myself or anyone else. It's not a judgment. It's like you're trying to bridge a gap here between two totally different worlds. They're not really different, but
Mm.
in our human minds, they're complete 180. And it's like, um, I didn't realize how much maturing I would be doing over the last 10 years with that. And it's like the step by step, that's the integration. And you cannot go from 0 to 100 in a physical human body without losing your mind. Or maybe, I mean, if you go live on a mountaintop, I always say maybe, but to like really still, we're here to bring this light through our body to embody it, not to leave our bodies and go off and be living off in some, like I probably was the first couple years. I just wanted to lay in bed and expand and be in my nothingness. I spent days, weeks, months in nothingness, and it's impossible to describe because it's very busy. There's no time. It's not a problem to be there as long as you want. But I know things were realigning for me. My whole physical world and my mind and body were realigning. So that was perfect. But it's like to be able to really bring the light into your body, it goes through tremendous change. Your mind goes through tremendous change. And then we're here to bring it in and then hopefully share it with the world, our family, our friends, not like, you better wake up, have you worked on your shadow self lately or anything like that? But, Alexis and I,
Yeah.
whoever's listening, we work in our communities in jobs where, like this year I got to do a bunch of really cool mental health training and stuff like that. And I know you get that. So it's like really like awesome to have this physical integration for the work I've done on myself, the work I do with others, to now get like this very mainstream, but like high level training as to what are the professionals, in the world helping people that are struggling with depression, anxiety, all sorts of, whether it's feeling different because you're neurodivergent or whatever, all this stuff. And there's tremendous leaps that the world is making scientifically and all that. But it is, like you said, Alexis, the ability to integrate step by step, because the more I delve into the world around me, and like when we were talking before, it probably sounds kind of like I live a busy life. Oh, I mostly am home by myself. When I'm not working, I don't do much outside, but I'm busy with myself. But the more you delve into this world around you, jobs, friends, family, whatever, it's like it takes all of your awareness to stay in your energy, your presence, and not start morphing back into any old habits and old things. And another thing I find is it also takes constant awareness on my part to be able to look at all the cool stuff science is doing now and be like, okay, but everything science knew 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, it all changes. It's not a belief I want to anchor in. a label, a definition, a belief, like keeping the awareness up here at the highest level of what's happening through all layers of us as beings, from source to soul level, galactic, cosmic energy. You got human, you got past life, and all these parts and pieces. And it's like the ability to keep your awareness up here and still be able to delve right down to the dirt is like, whoa, that's the challenge. It is intense. It is like intensely challenging that every moment you're like on your A game, but you're also not like you're working hard at it. It's just, I'm gonna say it kind of becomes natural.
It's kind of like for me, it's more like coming back to natural from unnatural. It's not like taking on something foreign. It's always coming back more to me, more to real me, more to authentic, more to the raw, real and authentic and natural. And so, in this way, like for me, of course, throughout the journey, it's been to realize how I can resonate, parts of me resonate with wild creatures, and for me, it's changed a lot that some of the things I absolutely don't participate in. Like, for example, now that, for example, I know horses, what they're like when they're in natural state, I realize how, in another state, they're basically slaves to, they're not natural. They don't act in a natural, they're put in unnatural things. And so it's a reflection of how I too I care for inside of me, for parts of me that are wild, that are untamed and always will be, and make sure that I have inside of me that space for that, for this nurturing, for the wisdom of the wilderness and all of that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's kind of coming back to the natural in this way. And so like you mentioned science and medical and psychology and stuff. For me, this last few years also has been about acknowledging both the spiritual and the medical, because I find that in a normal, so in a collective consciousness, they are very much separated, and so you will have people. I met people that are spiritual or more in a natural remedies and stuff that actually are so against the medical, and vice versa. There is this big border, but for me, I move in both. And like you said, getting the benefits of both, because I saw people stuck in a spiritual bypassing because they don't look at the real good practices that, for example, let's say, psychologists can bring. And there's so much good stuff from all different kind of parts, and vice versa. When I look at the medical, and soul is almost like such a taboo to even say this word. And then it's like, okay, so but you're not addressing, if people are stuck in that traditional way, they're not addressing so much that is part of a person. Like majority of people in the world are spiritual in some way, whether they're religious, whether they're whatever. And yet, the medical has become so atheist in this way. But you can't assist a whole person. It's not wholeness. You're just addressing part of it. And the same, I find that people within spiritual communities who don't avail or utilize or use all of the good stuffs that are available for people that wouldn't call themselves spiritual, because these are just words. Someone, it's really all about to do with awareness and consciousness, and people's path and people's talents and what they can bring. And they don't have to move in certain circles to bring real stuff that can help us and assist you, each individual, and other people. So for me, I kind of move in all of the worlds, and I find that all of the things, I just, whatever works, whatever I need at that time, or whatever I have needed, I've just used, So those judgments are just completely artificial, meaningless, when you
That,
just create boxes. But at the same time, I would like to say that, that discernment is very, very important. So you can't just like people say, oh, this is judgment, this is judgment. But it's if it, there's that's that thing. Judgment is mimicking discernment, because discernment is incredibly, incredibly important, and you become extremely discerning. It's not that arrogant judgment, but it is very much discerning. I very much can see and feel how people are, that you can feel their soul and the goodness and all of this, the essence that each one of us have, this divine essence. But there can be a very big difference between the human that they are on the surface, which actually they can be quite a dangerous human. So psychologically they can be someone who actually, sucks your energy, or energy vampires. And this is very, very important to recognize. And I see many people, spiritual people, get very caught in this, oh, we all should be kind and we should look good and good, and that actually just opens you up, and you will find some proper narcissists that will attach themselves and
Yeah.
completely drain you. Is that narcissist empath thing. And for me, the last couple of years have been a lot about this narcissist empath, and also to bring wholeness to both sides of this coin within me, not to project this one or the other on the outside, but to realize that, like everything else, the victim and abuser, the narcissist, the empath, it's all wholeness. It's part of me, and I have to accept both sides, both parts, both is that duality. And so back to that discernment, it is about being okay, like that kindness. It's such a weird word, because I realized along the way that a lot that is goes by kindness, oh, this is kind, is actually just energy feeding,
Yeah.
so it had to be to kind of realize. And you always, I come back to my own self, my own essence, like how no one can tell me certain things anymore in this way, because I either feel them or I don't feel them, and I feel the energy interaction. And like once you start going back to the collective, back to the normal, there is a lot of energy feeding, because people are not whole or healthy, and they haven't connected to their center essence, and so there's so much going on, and it's extremely important to keep practicing that discernment, and to keep trusting in my own judgment, even if I may be the only person feeling that. Like, for example, let's say, you go into a normal, let's say, workplace or anywhere, and you think, wow, this person, it really creeps me out. It gets all my hair on my skin to raise up, goosebumps, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not a safe person. And yet everyone else thinks what an amazing person they are. They might even have lots of degrees and all those letters and words between, in front of their name. And yet I know that this is not a very healthy person. And whether they have, underneath all those layers and layers, divinity or not, it's fine. They can have all the divinity they want, but in a present moment, they are a very dark, bad person to be around for someone like me. And so I act on that. I don't think about it. I don't wish them any bad. I don't wish them anything. It is just that neutral removing. Or if you are stuck with that person, let's say if you do get jobs or whatever, then I just act appropriately on my own feeling. I don't even have to discuss this with anyone else around, because they wouldn't understand, because
Right.
they don't feel at the same level. And so these are some of the things. There are practical applications of what we're doing. And also, we didn't know a few years back, when we were, when majority of like people, in our kind of groups, loose groups, that we were going through that, okay, removal from society, where you are spending those few years on your own in your own company to integrate, to now sort of like, okay, will I ever be able to be in a society? But the thing is, this is what we chose. We chose to be in a society, but these are some of the little things that we had to now work out how to be in a society. And it is possible, and it is possible to enjoy going out and to enjoy other people. And yet we still need that time for ourselves to come back to self. Not that we ever left, but it's a figure of speech, to sort of clear clear to come back to what is my truth, what is my essence. You feel it, my connection with the heart, because other people are connected energetically very, very differently. So there are now very, very different people walking on this world. And again, some spiritual people would like to say, oh, we're all the same. But it's actually not true anymore. It's not that every person has potential to be connected with their essence and clear with their essence, but it does require work, and it's no more. I'm not going to say, if someone is still energetically feeding, I'm not going to allow them to feed. And for that, you need this toughness, this complete uncompromising thing that, let's say, maybe 20 years ago, I would say, wow, this is a very cruel person. Not
Yep.
because you do cruel things, but for
You
people,
feel
it is
mean.
cruel. Yeah, for people,
Yeah.
this kind of things that we do are actually can be seen as
It's
mean or
compassionate.
cruel.
But
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
compassionate. Yeah.
I don't find that anybody has any problem with anything I do or say now, or hardly ever did, but I felt mean being asking for what I want, saying no, being honest, being direct at first because of all this
Mm,
sugarcoating bullshit that we were taught to do, right? So, yeah, it's like the way I look at it is when you feel solid in yourself, knowing that, and I am kind, I'm always kind, but I will be direct and honest. I'll say no. I might start out with, hey, I really want us to get on the same page, but I'm going to share this and be totally honest or whatever.
mm,
And I've had a lot of people, probably in the last year or two, that I have um, interacted with where I've thought, oh boy, we're never going to talk to me again, or this might go really bad. And it went wonderfully. And it was those moments where you're like you said, with the discernment, should I say something or not? And it's like this force, it arises and it comes through you. You have to honor yourself. You have to be honest. There's really like no other way anymore than to just trust your knowings, your feelings. And if you try to put a lid on it, it'll just bubble up and flow through. It's like there's no suppressing your flow now of your knowing and your expression. And I loved what you said before about how you flow in and out of these things in the world. Like, same here. I'll go to the doctor. Mostly I ask my body, what would you like? It's not about what the scientists say. It's show me what you need. Food, sleep, nutrition, you name it, go direct, ask the source. But I honor everything and I'll play with everything. And the way you said it before about moving through all these things, to me, that's like you being love in the world. That's you, that really is love because you're not separating yourself from anything or anyone. And I mean, when the knowingness comes, I need to say no to this person. That's also love because in the absence of,
very much love. This is very
yes,
much love.
that's
Absolutely.
love. In the In the absence of judgment, if you judge nothing, okay? I don't judge anything. And then there's a person next to you makes your hair stand up on the back of your neck. It's a serial killer. You're not judging them. You're discerning it. If you were afraid to see these things because you judge them so harshly, so when you are in judgment, you don't have discernment because you have these blinders on. Like, oh, I can't, that's too scary, or this is going to make me angry. This is going to upset me. This will make me sad. So you blinder a lot of these things, and then you don't have wide open awareness to discern. So when you drop all the judgment, now you can see everything and you can discern and trust yourself. Like when you want to say no, say no. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. Like, and to be so, it seems so selfish at first, like you're just only choosing for you and not what other people want. Imagine that. Like,
and oh, you're so selfish not to be a walking restaurant for people where they can feed on your energy at whatever time, that is just so selfish of you. You should be available to everyone and everything just to stop by and plug in and feed because they're
My
hungry.
cord
They're
unplugged, like
hungry.
we're saying that. Like my cord literally unplugged.
Unplugged.
We have become unplugged.
Unplug, unplug.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But it is. This is the kind of feeling, and you can really notice this like this. I've really been noticing this victim thing, and it's just so subtle, and oh, we the poor thing, because in one of the cases, for example, I've noticed how it's so easy to be a victim in this. I mean, to be in a collective consciousness in this way because you really don't accept responsibility, and a lot of, for example, let's say when you go to more medical side of things, whatever you
Oh
bring,
God,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, you poor thing, you're experiencing this. Oh, let me give you some pill for that. But and so you can feel, oh yes, I'm a poor thing, but with the spiritual, like if you sort of then, okay, yes, you are a poor thing, sorry that you're feeling and experiencing this, that absolutely is part of it. But
Mhm.
then the next step is, okay, so you have to look at, okay, what inside of you is contributing and creating and co-creating this situation, because whether you inherited it from ancestral or whatever, but you have to, the next step, there is a next step in the spiritual, which means that you look at what those things are that are contributing or making body to fight against yourself. Let's say if it's an autoimmune system or rheumatism or all of that kind of stuff, because there is a war happening inside of you still, and you have to look at that, whether you've inherited that, whether from parents, from your lineage, from your country, from your whatever, but still you are participating in that because you've patterned your inner world
Yes.
according to that, and they are warring, your inner world is warring against each other. So this is what, let's say, in a medical sort of or a collective consciousness, you actually could avoid, and that's that next step that is actually hard for people that are still playing in that, oh yes, poor me, I'm really this, yeah, because people enjoy that status where maybe attention or that energy that people give to unwell people, in and that when there's no next step. But in a spiritual way, that's the next step, is okay, now I have to start taking responsibility. And as you do start taking responsibility in this way, even though it's not pretty, none of these are pretty, that's the thing, these patterns, these inner wars are not pretty to look at and to realize. In shock, you're shocked to see what has gone on in what you've been doing, what your inner world has been doing. But then when you clear and you integrate and stuff, you become, you so beautifully, it's like the incense, you put this self-love that isn't like an incense that permeates all of those parts, and then your world so slowly starts expanding and expanding within, and you integrate more and more parts, and you love more and more parts. And as you love them and allow them just to be, that automatically, even though, for example, they've been loveless and in the darkness before, that automatically makes them healthy. Healthy means accepted, even though they still
Yep.
may have those patterns, but they know that they can come home at any time, that they are home, that they are loved, unconditional love. And this unconditional, really, these are the things that soul brings. This is not something the human can do. Human on its own can't do this. So when the soul infuses, soul and human infuses, that's when that unconditionality comes from, because the soul brings those particles of that, and then slowly the human self also surrenders into that and flows with that and becomes that also, and so that he can feel that unconditionality, because this unconditional love and all of that is thrown around a lot, but it cannot really be. I mean, some people have it because they naturally come already quite connected, people
Mhm.
that are spiritual and connected, or conscious, rather conscious, they're in all parts of life and they may not even use any
Yeah.
spiritual words.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
so it none of this means anything, like what where people you find, but and that's that discernment again, that you can actually feel these kind of things in people. And so yeah, so it's quite a revelation, like you said, when we unbox ourselves and we take those blinkers off and we keep expanding. There's so much that is a revelation. And for me, oftentimes I feel like, oh my God, is it that just me? Was I living under a rock? I have this experience very often and over, like when I all of a sudden see something and I'm thinking, wow, did everyone else in the world know this except for me? And all of a sudden now I've become aware of this. Or do other people know already how to do this? Of course, many other people, for example, in my case, have known how to love self. Like for me, I've come from more extreme traumatic type of experience from the childhood where other people have known how to self-love automatically and naturally. So for me, it's been like a step-by-step learning how to do that. But this too, my soul has chosen, because it wanted to resolve certain things within ourselves. When I say in this case, when I say ourselves, meaning all of the parts of me, there were certain things and blockages and areas that I wanted as a soul more consciousness of. And that's why there's Alexis here that is experiencing these things. And this too is part of that human journey, to accept the bigger picture, because initially you can feel as a human quite victimized towards your soul, because you feel like, oh my God, if I'm this divine being, the soul, why have I had such a shitty life? Why have I
Yeah.
had all of those things? And you can feel as a human victimized until, again, that awareness starts
Taking
seeping through.
responsibility.
Yeah, and you realize, oh, so that's why. And you also acknowledge, that we came as a soul to resolve certain issues within ourselves. And so it's not that the world is bad, and at the same time also, that there is, that we've been born into certain families to bring the light and to bring all of that. So there are elements of all of those things. There's just not this, in a multidimensional way of being, all of those things are true at the same time. There isn't just, or I'm either this, or I'm either starseed, or I'm a Blu-ray, or just this or that, or like
You're
we're
all of it, baby. You're
wholeness.
all of
That's
it.
it. Yeah, wholeness of being is whole. Being whole
Yeah.
encompasses so many things.
Yeah, and I love, when you're talking about the words we used, maturing or taking responsibility, and I was talking about that big gap before, and then you're talking about the people like, oh, I'm totally spiritual, I'm gonna shun the medical community and I'm, judge it all, and then you've also got the mass consciousness at times that judges the woo-woo stuff, and that big gap from this world to that world, perceptionally. And it really is like relearning everything. And I think a lot of times when I see people getting frustrated or struggling or complaining or being upset, it's like you really go from, oh, why is the universe doing this, or God, or my soul, or what, and to going, I am creator. And you take responsibility and you work it out. And now, like you said, you can't do it, but what happens is you realize that when you're in presence, these aspects can integrate because you become this awareness of it, right? But it's like the frustration at times is like, why isn't this going faster? I'm still dealing with this, or, I've heard this a lot. And it's like, you are the creator. in human form. There's not two of you, it's you. It's up to you to like get up every
Mm.
day and take this step and take that step, decide what is important for you. You know, it's like when you get the immensity of that, there is no point in going into whining, complaining, blaming. It's completely, it's not just,
Redundant. It's
oh,
redundant.
yeah, it hurts you. It's redundant and it just hurts you. It takes your vibration down. You know, it takes your energy from being expanded out here to this, and then all that mass consciousness energy just piles on you and you feel heavy, you feel down, you know. It's like an energetic avalanche if you go that route. But if you keep going the route that I am the creator, and show me, you know, connecting with yourself as show me and ask to be shown. And whether you are just breathing with yourself, being in your presence, it doesn't matter if that is your intent, it will come through for you. But it is really understanding that, like you said about childhood trauma, you know, I didn't know how to speak up for myself or how to ask for what I wanted. I would wait until I was severely pissed off, explode, walk away, smash things, you know, like, you know, it was not like, so what it really is to be practical about it, it's like, okay, something comes up. You sit down, you welcome your highest consciousness forth, your whole team, surround yourself in light, whatever, however you do it. And then show me, okay, what is important to me? I do want to be loving. I want to be honest, sincere, genuine, or I know that's what my true essence is. I want to unite, not divide. I want to meet the other person as our highest aspects. I want to see them, not just the crap they're bringing, but I'm going to see through that. I'm going to see the true light shining around them. I'm going to feel into it. I'm going to connect to that version of them. Like you learn along the way how to navigate the challenges by choosing all of these things. And then in the beginning, I didn't even know, I didn't have the words to have the conversations. It was like, I had to ask other people, what would you say if this happened to you? And then they would spill something beautiful out. Like you said, you'd be like, did you always know how to do that? Is because certain parts of us were so smothered, shut down at such an early age, we just couldn't see things, didn't know things, didn't know how to speak, didn't know how to get from here to here. Like I know it's there, I just can't figure out how to get there. So it really is like learning a whole new language, a whole new way of living, being able to sit down with someone and say, you know what? I really didn't like the way you spoke to me. I really want us to have a good and close and open relationship. So did I do something to upset you? And funny enough, and I know many people here probably listen to the Crimson Circle, but Adamus, I remember him saying like, don't ever apologize, you know, or a master never apologizes, one of his Adamisisms or whatever. And I find myself in that situation every time, starting with an apology. Just, hey, I'm sorry. Uh, because you have to remember that we live in a world where whatever percent, high percent of people are in survival. Their nervous systems are like this. They've got their guards up. You look at them sideways and their filters go up, their heart closes, and they're just trying to get through the day and not get, you know, killed. And so it's like, if there is even a tiny bit of friction, I'm going to start out by like opening my heart, extending the olive branch, and being like, hey, I'm on your side. Let's look at this together. Can we get along? Now, this isn't to negate our discernment, right? If it doesn't work out, fine. You know, there's no emotional attachment one way or another. Really, I can say no matter who it is, that's been hard, of course, at times with family and stuff, you know, it's like, oh, they hung up on me. All right, well, you know, 3 years later, we're getting along great. Fine, you know, but whatever. So those things happen along the way where things have to blow up, and they have to because vibrationally, it's not a match, and they need to go off this way. You got to let them go. They got to find their own way. But it really is of course, that level of understanding up here, what's really going on, whether it's, connecting with people from their light realms. Like I remember connecting with my daughter who's 25, and she got the same thing I did, which was really cool. That when we connected to our creator self and to each other, we both got the same message, like we're meant to go on our own separate ways for a while in this lifetime because we are so much alike. We have very similar energy and origins, we'll just say, with incarnating here together. And if we were together, just we need to explore and adventure and experience in our own ways, not in the old ancestral patternings that I was taught. And so it's like really a whole completely new way of living. You are a newborn. And then you have to figure it out now, basically on your own, with the support, of course, of like, we do group events and we do sessions and we have these circles, but it's like you use that to help keep yourself kind of fortified energetically. You can, these frequencies and all these blueprints are here. You can kind of get into them, but it's like, it all boils down to coming back to yourself. And again, whether it's your body, what kind of food do you want? All right, self, show me what's the next thing? Show me what's next. And this is new energy. And this is what really excites me. It's like you said, this doesn't come from the mind. I don't sit down and, okay, what should I create for my website? Like, well, I've been hearing a lot of people talking about this lately, or I've noticed this. And no, it's nothing at all like that. It's where you go into nothingness, silence, and you say, all right, let's activate what is going to be in the highest and best good of all concerned, or what new creation wants to be birthed for the whole, for my life, or for whatever. And you basically erase all the ideas your mind has ever had that's based on everything you've ever experienced before in all these soul journeys of the same old energy patterning, and you activate and you bring through the new energy, your source energy, you as creator. And it's like the ideas, the webcast that I do, that we've done, that there is no it there is no letting it come from the mind whatsoever. And that's like, on one hand, we're over here very actively using our minds to figure out how to live our lives in a way, kind of reconstructing this new foundation and making adjustments. Sometimes, oh, I'm gonna knock that wall out and try a new one or whatever. And then over here, we're just like, poof, let it be created through me, and letting that, that new way of living. It is such a dance to be grounded in very like realistic, practical human life, and yet be able to be open enough to let the truly new, what wants to just, I don't even think it wants to be birthed. I feel that creation is spontaneous. It spontaneously creates, like nobody even knows what is tomorrow because it is not based in patterns. It is truly new beyond something you could prophesize, right?
Yeah, indeed. And I was going to touch on that, what the discernment is about, what you mentioned before, when people say this and people say that. I found that always, what other people say, or even in our circles, you really also have to discern and feel it, what works for you. And if it doesn't, it doesn't matter who says it, we channel all the being, and the friends are helpful to us, non-physical beings. But non-physical beings are also just beings, and like, each one of us have to not give power, stop at one point, stop giving power away to other people, whatever they are, whether physical or non-physical, and say, okay, something is true because it's only true because it sings and speaks in my heart, and my heart and my own being says it's true. And what other beings say, it doesn't matter whether they, and it doesn't mean that they're not trying to be helpful or good, or it's not that it's not their truth, but becoming into a sovereign space and being this sovereign being means that I am the judge and the jury and I used to say the alpha and omega within my own space. I decide what is true and what is not, and what is I can use and what not, what I don't use. And so we kind of travel along this way, and we give credence and authority to others. And then at one point, and that's part of the journey. All of the things that we're discussing are part of the journey. And this also is discernment where it comes when you realize, okay, so you see a person, okay, they're in that part. And so you can't always speak to everyone at the same time, whatever, when we're speaking like this, because it depends, for someone at a certain step of their journey, what I'm saying may not be exactly right for them at the moment. They have to do at that time quite the opposite. And so it's the same for all of us. So comes, and also then comes a day when you realize this, and you realize, wow, from now on, I walk to my own drumbeat, meaning that I decide what I say, yes, it's a good thing or not a good thing. And very often when that comes, that time comes, I can recognize it now in people. It's very strong. You can recognize it. And
Mhm.
very often the soul, then your own being, your own essence, then can actually take you on the pathways that seem almost opposite to even people that you've been the most closest to up until then. And it's not because they're wrong. You don't have to break any bridges, or cut the bridges and all of that. We do that. I've done that. And it's then a few years later, you have to build the bridge. And sometimes the other person just says, no, I don't want to build a bridge again with you, because, like we just learn on these mistakes that we do along the way. But the soul then takes you into doing things just to sort of establish that trust between you and you. And so you end up doing quite differently to what that group is now doing. But it's right, because you're on that time when you're individualizing, when you're practicing, okay, what does it mean when I'm the boss within my own sovereign space, where I am the sovereign, meaning the king and the queen, this English expression, that I am within this judge and the jury within my space, that I say, but this is not the mind, this is not the human mind, because by the time you actually truly come to this place, you've been able to let go of the human mind as being the boss of your sovereign space. You're allowing the human mind just to be, and it's a tool of it's a tool of your soul, yourself. It's a legitimate, it's not something to be discarded. It is just something that it shouldn't be the boss of your world in a sovereign space. You, the essence, the soul combined with the human is the boss of your own sovereign space. And so we just topple off these false bosses, and other people, whether they're physical or non-physical, are also in this way false bosses, not because there's something wrong with them, but because it's not their place to be sitting on the throne within your sovereign space. This is what sovereign space means. It means if you're in your sovereign space, it means that you yourself are on the throne, making those decisions. Not your mind, not your ego, not the society, not the authority, not the science, not other channels, not other non-physical beings, which are all absolutely helpful. Each one of those is the boss in their own sovereign space within them. But each one, I have to be the boss within my own. And that almost is like, it feels at the time that you're betraying the group, or the person that you are following or whatever, but it isn't. It is just a natural step in maturing, because it's like a human adult. If they really are an adult, if you go to someone's house, you know that you're a guest there. and it's the same within your own sovereign space. And it's right, it's right
Yep.
that you're a guest. It's not like someone maybe that turns up with perhaps, nothing, and all of a sudden moves in, and all of a sudden they're the boss in your own space, and yet they don't contribute. That's not a healthy thing. So the same, in your sovereign space, if you liken it, things are all the same. Our lives and human lives reflect these truths, because none of it is apart from your whole being. None of it is apart from your essence, from the creator, from the God, so to speak. We all live inside of God in this way. So things reflect all the things. This is what kind of was one of those funny things. If you hear funny noises, we've got the gardeners outside because it's during daytime in my place. So I'm just kind of saying, if you hear some grass cutting noises, that's what it is. Anyway, so back on the track. Like, what one of those big questions that we had before, when we thought, okay, what does it mean to be realized? What does it mean to be enlightened? And for the mind, it used to mean that it's going to be something so different to what the human mind is. But it's kind of like the Zen wisdom says, what do you do before you get enlightened? You cut wood, meaning you care for your own life. You do the practical things that you need to. You have to keep yourself warm during winter. What do you do after enlightenment? You cut wood. You do the same. You make sure your body's well, that you've got air conditioning if it's hot, that you've got heating if it's cold, whatever it is, that you create that well-being. So you pretty much, after realization, you do all of the things that you had to do before as human being. It is just that now all of the things are infused with sacredness, with divinity, that you don't look at them as plain, as ordinary, because then you actually realize just how much goes into creating a physical world, and how much science, and how your soul is this huge scientist. Like the kitchen is a chemistry lab, because you're applying heat and changing chemical compositions of these things. Like my soul self, Michael loves cooking and things like that, because all just this bubbling and all of these vapors and stuff, like it just fires up this scientific part of myself, and it's fascinating, all of these things. So that's what happens. Like, as you infuse your soul self, everything becomes sacred. You realize how incredible everything is. Everything that we use, the computers, nothing is outside of it. The computers, the things, the chair I'm sitting in, the camera I'm looking at, the everything is sacred. There is nothing outside. And that's what is does this such makes such a huge difference. It's not that I'm doing different things. I still, as I said before, I still get up, I still brush my teeth, I still, whatever it's needed as a human life, and yet everything is different. So at the same time, everything's the same, but everything's different. So, and this is hard to actually portray to someone who doesn't actually have that infusion, because these things are based on a feeling. They're not based on
Yeah.
words,
And a
like,
perspective, like
and
a
perspectives. Yeah, but people mistaken words for what it actually is. People will say, oh, soul, it's a lovely word, but you actually feel, when you feel it, that's a whole different thing. And this is what basically a lot of the movement in this becoming whole is, from words and theories into realizing what you feel, what you experience. This, and that's the sensuality of it. It's not like that I automatically have to consciously do some sensual things, but everything, just because you move your focus of experience from things and theories and words onto the actual real experience. That's what I'm finding with music. Very many people, I find that they mistaken notation for music, but notation is just a tool of experience of music. I experience music on the inside, and then if I'm practiced, my hands can play it on the on the instrument. If I practice, I have to practice physically so my hands know the techniques and all of that. But the music, feeling, the flow, the sound, the scent, all of that flows inside of me. And this is how you can also tell if someone is actually a musician and they're still not, because they're still in the theory, and you can see because they're forcing it. And then you see someone who is like, even if there was silence, how sometimes people play music, they play a solo on an instrument and then they go silent, and yet the body still goes like this because that's where the music is happening in their body. And then you just act on it. And it's the same with this soul, being a soul being. This experience, the feeling, the perception is real in your body, in
Yep.
your inside of your being. And then you use all the tools you want, the words, the poetry, the whatever it is, to try to express the realities that you are experiencing. And this is why there is this huge gap between people who haven't and people who have. And yet at the same time, each person has childhood, have perhaps, unless they've been traumatized and you can't remember and stuff. But as a child, they initially experienced their life like that. And so each person also, and throughout their life, people will have this kind of what we call mystical experiences to give them that feeling that you can now then allow, as a creator, like you said, to bring it into the reality of your own experience. So you're just allowing what you already are to be this. But it does this journey, it needs that journey, because you need that maturity and those experiences and the time to practice those abilities, time to sort out how do you become master of your emotions, how do they not overwhelm you, how are you not afraid of certain things within you that you have to run, or maybe take medication or self-medication with alcohol and all sorts of things that people do because they're running away from this now moment, from the reality. And this is a journey to come back to the now moment. It's like, when you're not connected, when you're unconscious, you're a stranger to yourself, you're
Yes.
a foreigner, you're an alien
You're
to
all
yourself.
alone. You're all alone when you
Yeah,
don't feel that.
yeah, and you're just coming back. This journey is just really coming back to self. But what is this self? Is this presence in the now moment? That's all, the most, like, the description that I can say. What is it? It's just this beingness in the now moment, moment by moment, second by second. And to be able to be in the now moment, you've had to come home and resolve your demons, the demons, that inner demons that didn't allow you to um to reside in safety, in self-love, in acceptance of this
Feel.
now moment. And it's in the now moment then that you can meet all these other characters, which is non-physical beings, that all of these dimensions and realms and the vastness of your soul is then slowly revealed to you as a human. But it all is in this now moment. So if you can't be touch, if you have this barrier of whatever it is that stops you from being here in yourself, then yeah, you can't experience any of this, or you just have glimpses. But being a creator really is, again, that journey from immaturity to maturity, because it's only when you've actually integrated and done all of these that you can actually then own it and claim it. And that's why, again, is that difference between people that are mentally unwell or narcissistic or psychopathic or whatever you call that, because they're claiming something that they're not experiencing, they're faking it. But when you actually journey through these things and you're in your maturity, then you truly do experience yourself as a creator. Because if you just make these kind of statements, sometimes in certain communities, I'm a creator and stuff, they could say you're delusional, because they base it on that disconnection. But the journey to here, when you actually really do the work, then makes it real that you can actually own. But it's not, you're not owning your mind in a sense, you're not actually owning what the mind says about being a creator. Along the way, mind has become like a small tool. It's taken its rightful smaller place of this being the sovereign in your own sovereign space. It's not a boss anymore, but it still has a function as a human being. So it's not diminished. It's an equal part of a whole. It also is part of a soul. But you just don't give it has its own limited ideas on things because it's not its job to be your soul, because it isn't. It's not its job to be a creator. We try as a human that is disconnected or unconscious. They make the mind into God, into that creator, but it isn't. It's not its job. It tries its hardest and it mimics, but it's not. So when you allow this essence of you to take its rightful place, it's a very, very different way and healthy way to be all of those things that the mind tries to mimic in its disconnected state. And that's very hard to actually, people that, it's kind of like if you have a blind person, they can't, you can talk to them about colors and what you see, but unless they can see, they can't see. And it's the same when people are disconnected, they can't actually imagine. And so you just have to have that patience and compassion and let people be where they are, because it's the experiences, and it's also their own journeys, their own soul's journey. It's not anybody else's business what the soul and the human do. So that's why this what's the word, proselytizing, or trying to convince people or trying to make them, that's just energy feeding, really, because you can't, it's, and also the judgments in a way of, if people are still in suffering or in diseasement and stuff, they too are a soul being. It's up to them on their souls as to what they too know what they're doing. It is just up to each individual to realize, okay, that person is in that space, but that's not my space anymore. So I either remove myself, or, you make those kind of decisions, the discernment decisions, but they're very conscious and very loving to both sides, because one of the things also was a huge thing I noticed is, how when you are in this space and you radiate, I trigger people a lot. And some people get triggered in a good way, and some people don't get triggered in a good way. They don't dislike me a lot, just automatically. And it is, if they're not interested in this journey, then this light, because then they can start seeing glimpses of who they are and the work that they have to do. And some people absolutely don't want to do that, and that's okay as well. But so these are some of the things that I've learned just interacting and being part of the world, rather than in that space when I was still on my own, doing the wild, going for walks and all of that. But these last few years of interacting with a normal world, with collective consciousness, these are the kind of things you learn, and you discern, and you find ways around, and yeah, there's a lot of, again, wisdom making in all of that that we had no idea how it's going to
Oh,
work
God.
out before. Yeah.
We're still, I feel like, yes to everything. And every day is like a new discovery. Every day is like, there's just, like you said, where you look back and go, did everybody know that? Or did, it's like, how did I not see that? Or how did I not know
Mm.
that? And you're right, though. It is, our light will highlight those things. And people, the beauty, what I love is I find is it either repels people, which is like fine, or it draws people. So it really cuts through, the clutter so quickly, which is totally perfect. And I know we're almost done here, but I love what you said, about feeling, about being in beingness, uh, being with your soul, as you call it. I call it a presence, or but feeling that, and how it always comes back to that. Everything, no matter how much I talk, no matter what, this, that, because life can be complex and convoluted, it's like everything always comes back to being in presence, where we're feeling, where we are able to feel and sense and connect and commune with ourselves. And it's like that is the best feeling ever. I think that's why every day it's like you won the lottery because you're at the end of the day, I lay on the couch, watch little Netflix or lay down in bed or whatever, and it's like it's very exciting to just feel your presence, to just like I use the example walking down the road, turning the dial to, damn it, no, okay, that's there, but I'm going to feel me. And when you feel that presence of love, it's like you're never alone. It goes from what you were saying, where at one point you're running from yourself. You're just been running from yourself when you're drinking or you're doing drugs or you're working all the time or you just go, go, go. You're just running from your parts of yourself that you haven't faced and felt yet. And when you finally feel them and just let them crush you to bits, I mean, I used to say, go ahead, take me over, go ahead, kill me, just the terror of feeling some of these parts, the utter, like the most uncomfortable things ever that you think, and it's always that moment, that sudden moment where it's like you take that breath and instead of turning away this time, I'm going to lean into it and say, go ahead, take, hit me with your best shot. Come on in. Let me feel it all. I used to say, I'll feel it all. Let's go. And once you feel all that, the funny thing is on the other side of it is this unending presence. So no matter what's going on, like you said in the beginning, it's like there's always that underlying connection. And that is the biggest gift. It's unique and individual, like you said, and that's definitely something I've learned being out in the world again, my God, and working with all different people, even my coworkers. Like I work with all these amazing, smart, intuitive rock stars, and it's hilarious. We all process information differently. We all get to the end result differently. We're so completely different. It's like there's no one size fits all. There's no one path. Everything I say right now applies to some people and to other people, like you said, completely opposite. And so it really is this discernment that grows through being integrated, taking this divinity and integrating it back into everyday life. So I hope that the people that have joined us tonight, and thank you, by the way, I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And if anything, I hope you're inspired to take your presence, your beautiful light, your divinity out into the world to, keep tiptoeing. For me, it was little by little, bit by bit. And then I'd have to come back and feel myself and clear out. And it was just teeny bits out there. And now I'm out there a lot. But just to point one more thing out, this keeps coming up, and so I want to share this. It's like be endlessly patient and accepting of yourself and trusting of yourself. Do not fret. Do not go into fear, into panic, any of that. Just trust and know that you're okay no matter what. Even if you take a 10-year hiatus and go ignore yourself with, I don't know, by doing something else and you run away and hide, you're still fine. You're a creator. No matter what happens, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're better than fine. And so it's like, this past year, I said I was busier than ever, worked harder. I was like, yes, I'm alive again. I might actually have a life again. Can you imagine it? But, that was like the first 9 months out of the year. September through December, it was like my ability to do was cut in half or maybe a quarter. I worked half as much as I did the first 9 months of the year. I didn't do anything extra. I came home, pulled the blinds every night, got my jammies on, laid on the couch, watched Netflix, took baths, walked, breathed, slept, stared at the ceiling. It's like, just keep in mind that I think Alexis had said, oh, I used to be naive and think, oh, this is the way it's going to be every day from now on. It's like, There's still, no, you're in a body. You're going to go through recalibrations, transformations. Your body's constantly remolecularizing based on your consciousness. We're in a holograph here. This is not a solid reality. And every thought you think, every choice you make, every upgrade, every expansion, your body, your mind, and your world have to recalibrate with you. So be utterly, completely trusting and patient. That's not a free card to just like, I mean, I highly don't recommend just laying on the couch and eating ice cream and potato chips all day endlessly. I mean, I did that for a couple years, quite a lot actually. So it's still okay if you do, but there's a point where you know, all right, I'm going to take some action steps, the physical stuff, take care of my body, movement, nature, diet, whatever it is, nutrition, friends, sunshine, air, work, community, whatever all those practical things are, some gardening. I'm going to get up and do those things, but like, so it doesn't negate that, but just I hope you are inspired to go out and stick your toes in the water more and more and more. Bring your divinity out into the world. You know, your light is priceless. It affects people with or without a word. It lights everything up. It leaves a shine and a shimmer on the buildings, the floors, the planet itself. You are bringing activation. So if you feel called to stay home, stay home. But when you feel called to get up and go, just know that all this work you've been doing and that you've done is a huge, huge gift. It's a gift to nature, to humanity, to every particle of creation. And the more you get out there and play and have fun, it's like, I think for me at least, the fun keeps growing and growing and growing. And yeah, there's times where then you step back and you have to allow for some recalibrations and things like that. So, uh, being endlessly patient and accepting of yourself is really, really important.
And yes, I would second that, all that you said. And I also wish everyone to just, keep playing and unpacking the 2025. So, like we discussed, we each had very unique experiences with last year, and so with this year as well. And just if you feel that urge or a desire to step out, because the world is very, very different than what it used to be. Like Cathy said, it's very accepting of many things. And also you will realize as you do step out that you are actually somewhere in there, in all of these years of integration and all the work, you've become incredibly, or you've allowed yourself to step out as an incredibly capable being, a being that can handle and deal with anything that is out there. And it's actually when you step out and you realize just how much other people are suffering in the energies of these times, you realize, and you start even more appreciating the work that you've done, because you see the benefits of the work that you've done. You see how you can handle things differently, how much impact having self-love as the basis of you is how loving it is, how different, how your level of how you deal with things, how your reality is now based in a completely that new world. How we talk about new earth and the old earth, and you live in a new earth. If your base is, if your foundations are self-love, basically, then you live in a new earth. And then you can interact with others still in the old earth. And the amazing thing is how quickly you realize, how quickly you've forgotten what it was like, because this new reality is so natural, so normal, so everyday part, so logical in all the ways that, and you get surprised as you see other people struggling with things that for you are now very tiny. Like you said, Cathy, these huge problems that used to look huge are now so small, and you can just deal with them, and still have time for all those wonderful things that you want to participate or lie relaxing and staring at a ceiling. It's a fabulously active thing to do, I find, you know, and it's wonderful, like these kind of downtimes or whatever, where you can, where I can just allow my soul to dance within me and bring me all these ideas and new insights and what it's so dynamic. Everything is so dynamic, you know, like you don't have to do much physically, but you do, because being part of the physical world is so beautiful as well when you know how to look after yourself. And the things that, so many things that used to worry, for example me, I no longer worry. Why? Because you start trusting this way of being. You know that whatever step you take, and making choices becomes also very easy, because you know that whichever way you turn, it's gonna be self-loving. Why? Because you're there. And if your foundation is self-love, then whatever you choose is also gonna be permeated, infused with that self-love. And once
No,
you know how to care for yourself in this way, it then anywhere in the world you can go, or you don't have to go anywhere. You know, it's that kind of thing. You just be in this self-love and this foundation that we now are, and you're safe space, you're protected, and you can explore and you can expand and you can be adventurous. You can be any words that you say, and you can just own them and be them and do them.
creator, I just have to say before you finish, I had an epiphany while you were saying that. Where so like where now it's not a big deal and you have this trust. It's because it's this trust used to be in something out here, God or my guides or the universe. And it's like now that you own it,
I own it.
the confidence and
Yes,
trust become kind of one thing that you have owned everything. It just sort of like poof, that just really landed when you were saying that, how that shifts
mm,
from external to it's all you and you trust yourself completely because you've walked
mm,
through everything. Sorry,
yes.
go on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. We walk through everything, and you've become this, you know, a sovereign in your own sovereign space. That's, you've become the rightful person that is the creator in your creative space. And so much magic happens in that. And so I think we've come to the end, haven't we? We've gone for over 2 hours. You know, when we kind of talked about, oh, should we do an hour? And I thought, yeah, we'll do an
Yeah,
hour
right.
for sure.
And this morning, my mind is like, what are we going to talk about? I have no idea what we're going to say. I'm like, don't worry. We always have more to say.
Thank you for each one for having patience with us too as we keep going on and talk. And for those of you watching for the recording, you also are very much present in this, and we're going to so this is going to stay on Facebook for replay, and also we're going to be putting each one of us onto our YouTube channels. For those that in Europe it was 2 o'clock at night, so we understand that we never can coordinate time for everyone in the world. So sorry about those people that was middle of the night. And yeah, until next time.
Yes.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Cathy, for bringing this idea, for the inspiration, for the invitation. It's been a pleasure to, and always is a pleasure to participate, to chat with you in this way.
Yep, same with you, Alexis. I just love when we get together and we flow so beautifully, and you have such a beautiful way of explaining things, and we come from different ways of explaining, and it's just such a gift. So thank you, and I'm so glad that you do the work you do. I know you were talking about that being a topic, and it's like I'm so grateful that we get to come together and do this. So thank you.
And likewise, thank you, dear Cathy. And thank you, each one that is participating today. Until next time.